my fellow comic book collectors, it's Alan, the Comic Collector Geek, and this is the Sunday video where I look at the hottest Golden Age comics of the week. And this is actually a special episode because recently there was a collection that came up on Heritage Auctions. It's the Olympia collection. And so all of these books are from the Olympia collection. And so it was just a collection that they sold it all in one auction. And the Olympia collection, you can identify it pretty easily, actually. The guy that had the collection basically stamped all of his books with a big red A or black A, sometimes. So they're all stamped with an A. So you'll notice that on these covers. So these are all from the same collection. They're pretty cool books. The guy had a pretty amazing collection. I wish that I could have shown more of it. Like, I'm only showing 10 books from it, but it was an impressive collection. He had a lot of early timely books, lots of Cap, Submariner, Marvel Mystery Comics, just a really, really awesome collection. And in reasonable grades, like sort of that sweet spot for most of the books in the collection was around that 6.0 range. So solid grades for these books that normally you just don't see in high grade. Let's get into it with the very first book, which is number 10 on the list, and it's Boy Commandos #1. Now, this is from DC 1942. It's a Jack Kirby and Joe Simon cover, and it's actually the origin and first appearance of Liberty Bell. This book has a really cool flames and World War II V for Victory kind of formation on the cover. Just a really cool book. This is where Boy Commandos get their first titled comic. Just a cool book altogether. Now, this was a 7.5 that sold, and it sold for $2,880, which is a strong sale. Barely a record, but still a strong sale. And I'll get into that. The previous record for this book was set back in May of 2006 for $2,856. So slightly up from that previous record. So if you had basically spent almost 20 years and it went up only like $30, not a really good track record for this book in terms of price going up. However, that 2006 sale was a really high sale. It was just out to lunch kind of price because the book really dipped a lot, like maybe almost went for half soon after that. Just really wasn't performing that well right after it. But it sort of was slowly recovering. And if you look at the price in August of 2019, it sold for $2,160. So it slowly recovered almost back to where the record was. Still shy by 700 off the record in 2019. But now it's finally, after like 20 years, has gotten back to where that record price. I sometimes worry that the prices that we had in COVID will take 20 years to recover. This is kind of like an example of that. So it's a cool book, little bit undervalued in a way because it is such an important book with such a cool first appearance as well. But yeah, it's finally setting new records. So there's 116 of these on the census, and 100 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 9 on the list is Keen Comics. And this is from Centaur Publications, 1939. It's a Fred Schwab cover, and it's a fishing cover. Just a cool fishing cover, a little quirky. But this is from Centaur, 1939. And that's something I really have to emphasize because the Centaur books are sort of like these sort of, collectors that like to get more obscure or rare things go after Centaur books. And though this might not be the coolest cover ever, it's not about that. It's about the fact that it's a Centaur. and that can really drive the price on these books. This is a Gerber 8, which is a rare book, very, very hard to find book. So that kind of drives the price. So I was like looking at this one, I'm like, why did that sell for so much? Well, you'll see. It's just a scarce book. This was a 6.0 that sold, and it sold for $2,880. Now, 6.0 doesn't sound like a high grade, but it's actually the highest grade for this book. It is one that you just don't, like a lot of the Centaurs, you don't see in these really high grades. They're hard to find, and they're hard to find in high grade. So this is actually, as I said, the highest graded copy for this book. Now, this book had a previous record set back in March of 2019 for $1,600. So it's up $1,200 from that prior record. It actually had slipped from that prior record where in November of 2023, a copy sold for $1,418. So this is the book really coming back up and coming up strong. It's doubled that last sale. Very strong sale for this book. I was actually shocked when I saw this. I thought it would stop around the $1,600 mark, but it just kept on going. It was really strong sale. There's only 6 of these on the census, and 6 are Universal Blue Labels. So, as I said, very hard book to find. Number 8 on the list is the Human Torch number 3. Sometimes known as Human Torch number 2 as well. It's like one of those ones where the numbering is a little weird. This is from Timely, 1940. It's an Alex Schomburg cover, and it's actually an interesting book. It has like a two pages inside that are full pages devoted to promoting Captain America number 1. So kind of a cool, some people kind of use these as first appearances. Well, this is kind of cool first appearance, kind of, where he's an ad. It also has Hitler story as well. So that's interesting because this is before the war. So a couple cool things going on for this book. This was a 4.5 that sold, and it sold for $3,120. That's a strong sale. It's up 50% from its prior record, which was $2,100 set back in February of 2020. So a very strong sale for this book. As I said, up 50%. There's 110 of these on the census, and 80 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 7 on the list is Jackpot Comics number 4. This is from MLJ, 1941. It's an Irv Novick cover, and it is the very first appearance of Miss Grundy, which is the teacher for Archie, and it's actually the very first Archie cover. Now, it's not the first full Archie cover. That is on actually Pep 26, but it's him in one of those little bubbles. So it is his technically first cover, and that makes it extra cool. But this was a book that is kind of a big one, but did very underperforming. This was a 2.0 that sold, and it sold for $3,840, which is a steal, actually. Really, this book has really dropped. The previous record for this book was set back in May of 2013 for $8,350. So this is more than half below what it had sold for 12 years ago. Now, this book has actually been dropping. This is similar to the other one where you had a really big sale back in the day and then it sort of dropped afterwards. This was kind of the same idea. The last sale for this book was actually in April of 2024 for $3,120. So though it's half of that historic record, it is actually up from its more recent sales, where, as I said, it's up about 20% from its current sales. So that's a strong sale despite being half what it was from the record. Just a really good book. There's 42 of these on the census, and 34 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 6 on the list is Four Color number 16, and it's the first series. Now, there was 2 series of Four Color. One was just a short-lived series, and then there was a second series. This is the first series from Dell, 1941. I'm not sure who the cover artist is because it's from the Disney wheelhouse, and they usually don't accredit their artists. But this was the very first appearance of Mickey in comics. And it's cool that he's on the cover as well. It's him versus the Phantom Blot. Really cool, kind of a spooky cover too, which makes it extra cool. So this is the very first time we get Mickey Mouse in comics. Now, Donald Duck actually appeared in comics before Mickey Mouse, in terms of the comic-sized comics, I should say, because if you go into the comic book format where it's magazine format, obviously we got Mickey Mouse being the first. But this is the very first in a standard comic format appearance of Mickey Mouse. So kind of a cool book. This was a 5.0, and it sold for $6,000. Now that's actually slightly down from its record. The previous record for this book was set back in December of 2023 for $8,400. Now, this book also kind of went up and then back down. The last sale, more recent sale, was in December of 2024, where it sold for $5,500. So it's kind of recovering again. It's not quite up to where it was at its peak, but it is still recovering. It's up 10% from the last sale. So one of these books where the price has been a little bit off, a little bit weak for this book. There's 145 of these on the census, and 121 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 5 on the list is Marvel Mystery Comics number 5. This is from Timely, 1940. It's an Alex Schomburg cover, and it is actually his first Human Torch cover. It's the first time that Alex Schomburg draws the Human Torch. So a little extra special, because if you look at the Marvel Mystery Comics that Alex Schomburg did with the Human Torch, they're just phenomenal. They're just amazing stuff. And so this is where that all begins. This one is actually ranked in the top 100 Golden Age books as number 38 in terms of desirability. So it's number 38 out of 100. It's really very desirable book. This was a 1.0, so fairly low grade, like just any lower and it's incomplete. This is the lowest you can get without being incomplete. And it sold for $6,000. Now, the prior record, this was a massive sale, actually. This was the big sale. The previous record for this book was set back in February of 2011, so fairly long time ago, where it sold for $896. And actually, the last sale was still fairly long time ago, where it sold in November of 2013 for $765. So it's one of those books where it has just really gone up in the last 10 years. Way better performing than some of the other books on this list. This was a strong sale. This was a really strong sale. It's up, almost 10 times, like 8 times from what it had sold for in the past. Really, this would have been a good investment. I always think of back in the 90s where people were getting long boxes of, X-Men 1 or Turok number 1. Well, get your long boxes filled with Marvel Mystery Comics, because this one performs so well. This is one you could easily retire on with that kind of performance. Really, really strong sale. So there are 46 of these on the census, and 29 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 4 on the list is Pep Comics number 41. This is from MLJ, 1943. It's a Harry Shaw cover, And this one is interesting because you got the shield on the cover, and it's like a boxing ring, and he's holding up Archie's arm as if Archie has won this boxing match. And it's kind of an interesting book because this is where the title goes from. Usually the shield is the main character on the cover, and in this one it's Archie that takes over. So after this issue, every time afterwards, it's always Archie covers. So this is really that crossover, and it's almost like, that handing of the torch, where Archie has won the battle. He's the one that's going to take over the title, and it's just a interesting, ironic cover. So this was a 6.0 that sold, and it sold for $6,000. That is a massive sale. I really didn't expect this one to sell for so much. I was like, why is this one going for so much? It's a cool cover, but it's $6,000. I was like shocked. The previous record for this book was set back in February of 2018 for $1,972. So really strong sale, like up 3 times from that sale just 7 years ago. So really strong performance for this one. There are 26 of these on the census, and 23 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 3 on the list is Marvel Mystery Comics number 4. This is from Timely, 1940. It's an Alex Schomburg cover. And it's actually the very first time you see the Submariner on the cover. And it's also the very first time that in comics where you see the Nazi flag. So this is a classic World War II cover for that reason. And just a major book. This is probably, of the Submariner books, this is one of the biggest ones. I would say in the top 3 Submariner comics. This was a 0.10 that sold, and it sold for $7,200. That actually sounds like a lot, but it's actually a weak sale. The previous record for this book was set back in June of 2022, where it sold for $10,925. That's maybe a bit of a COVID price because it was a little bit of a strong sale at that time. But even the last sale for this book was set back in September of 2024, where it sold for $10,200. So this book had been sort of at that $10,000 threshold, almost $11,000 threshold for a fairly long time. So this is 30% below that. So a really weak sale for this one. Kind of a disappointment for this one. You would expect it to have sold for more. I mean, this copy is pretty beat. I mean, it is a 1.0, but it is really beat. It's got tape all over it. It's a pretty rough copy, but the colors are actually pretty strong. So I would have thought this would have gone for more. Bit of a weak sale. There's only 70 of these on the census, and 39 are Universal Blue Labels. So half the census is, Universal. Just shows you how hard it is to get this book as a Blue Label. Number 2 on the list is Captain America number 5. This is from Timely, 1941. It's a Jack Kirby and Joe Simon cover. This is actually the first time you get Stan Lee writing a comic book story. And it also features a very cool Wheel of Fortune or Wheel of Torture cover. This guy with the hat, this like Nazi guy spinning the wheel, and he's going to torture people. Kind of a cool cover as well. This was a 6.0 that sold, and it sold for $12,000. Another massive sale because the previous record for this book was set back in November of 2021 for $8,400. So up 50% from that prior record only 4 years ago. Really strong sale for this book. Very desirable one for Stan Lee collectors and also early Cap collectors. I mean, this is a cool book. There are 123 of these on the census, and 82 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 1 on the list is another Captain America. This is Captain America number 3. This is from Timely, 1941. It's an Alex Schomburg cover. And this one is interesting because I said that the previous book was the first Stan Lee comic story. Well, this is actually the first time you get Stan Lee writing anything in a comic book. He wrote a text story in this one, a short text story, and so this is actually the first time he gets published in comic books. So this is kind of even bigger key in a way for Stan Lee collectors. And this is also a cool Red Skull cover and Bondage cover as well. So you got that as well. Alex Schomburg cover. Lots going for this book. This is a cool book. This was a 5.5 that sold, and it sold for $26,400. So massive sale, but not a record. It actually ties the previous record, which was 26,400, set back in January of this year, so January of 2025, where it sold for the same amount. So it's basically set that new bar for where this book is selling at, and it's kept that price. Before that, like, this book doesn't sell that often, so this is not an easy book to get. Before that, you have to go back all the way to 2003 to get this book. So it's been a while since this book sold, and for it to sell twice in 1 year is kind of a big deal. But back in 2003, this book sold for $3,795. So it's up 8 times from that prior record, almost 9 times from that prior record. So this is, it just shows you how much this book has increased in value over the last 20 years. It's just, it's gone up a lot. Generally, if you kind of do the inflation math, I always like to do that kind of inflation math. How much would it be worth in today's money back then? All the math. Or what's a good return on investment? Typically, what I always like to do is my rule of thumb, and this really depends on a more stable inflationary market. The last 4 years was kind of a little bit massive inflation, but that aside, generally you expect that comic books will double every 10 years. That's kind of like good rule of thumb for investment. And that means that they're getting a 7% rate of return if you if you really want to get into math. But this book greatly outperformed that math. And, because you would expect it to double once and then double again. So you would expect 4 times the value, but not 8 times the value. So this did really, really well. Very strong sale. So there's 132 of these on the census, and 71 are Universal Blue Labels. So I hope you enjoyed this special auction that I looked at, the Olympia collection. And I'd love to hear your feedback. Put it in the comments below. Thanks again for watching. Bye for now.